Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about things to watch out for when basketball card flipping. This one's going to be kind of digging into details on different events, things to be paying attention to, so stick around, you're not going to want to miss this one. Hey guys, thanks for joining us again for another episode. I've been getting a lot of questions over the last few weeks about just, how do we flip cards? A lot of it is from new people kind of getting into this hobby that are looking to build off of it. They want to buy a lot, frankly, but to do that, they need to be able to properly buy and sell, use those profits to buy more cards or to upscale, kind of what a lot of collectors do this to where they'll invest in players on a smaller scale to build up in an effort to buy a larger card, like a Michael Jordan rookie card or LeBron James rookie cards, for example. So there's a lot of questions surrounding, how to flip the smaller cards in an effort to just profit, but then also to use that to grow the collection with the higher end stuff, which makes a lot of sense to me. I do the same thing. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is you want to pay attention to injury reports. When a player gets injured, first off, you have to ask yourself, okay, if it's a star, like if it's a Kevin Durant, that's going to be a buying opportunity for Kevin Durant because he's a future Hall of Fame player. His cards will most likely take a dip. And so based off of that, you can get in and get in at a good price typically, and then work off of that to resell when he becomes healthy and gets back into the game. The other part to look at is who's replacing him, because a lot of times it could be a pretty decent player that's now getting a lot more minutes, and could they get a bump? I mean, if they start going off, if they're on a great team and they step up, you could see cards that maybe that's a lesser known player where, shoot, you can get rookie cards for $10, $15, $20. All of a sudden it turns into a $40, $60, $80, $100 card. So those are the things to pay attention to. Anytime you have injuries, especially to star players and on great teams, it's who's going out and who's coming in, and based off of those factors, you can get some good deals. Secondly, I would look at which teams and players are the media hyping. So there might be some players that really don't even deserve the hype necessarily, but if Stephen A. Smith is talking about him or talking about that team, that can give, if enough people are watching it, which enough people watch Stephen A., to where if he's pushing a particular team, if he's pushing the Cleveland Cavaliers, even if the Cavs are not a good team, you will see people that jump on that bandwagon. You'll see swings. So we're paying attention to, the teams that the media is hyping. And then we're also paying attention to, teams that could be potential playoff teams that are sleeper playoff teams. The Dallas Mavericks would be a good example of this. I mean, before the season, I remember all the Stephen A's of the world saying, the Mavericks would be extremely lucky to get the 8th seed, and they're probably not going to make the playoffs. They're not a playoff team this year. That's what everybody was saying. And with the Warriors pretty much out of it this year, I think they're hanging on to the 7th seed as it sits, maybe 6. But they're in it. They're in it. And if they get into the postseason and Luka has a huge game, drops 50 points on somebody, then you're going to see boosts in pricing. So that's another thing that you want to pay attention to, or who's the media hyping, and who are those kind of under the radar teams that you think could make a little bit of a breakout, from what's expected. Next would be the trade deadline. So, we need to look at this because let's say we're talking about a Trae Young who plays for the Hawks. Is he going to get traded anytime soon? Probably not. But the point is he's playing for a team that's not a playoff contender. If Trae Young all of a sudden got traded to the Lakers, just like Anthony Davis did, for example, his cards would, even though they're already high, they would go that much higher. And, we don't have to use Trae Young as an example because he's already a hot young player, but, you could take a veteran player that's also a great player. And if they move to a team that's maybe Anthony Towns, if he moves to the Boston Celtics, let's just say, then you're going to see a boost. Those are the kinds of moves that you have to pay attention to with the trade deadline. Next, you want to look at pop reports and scarcity, because when we're looking at flipping again, one thing that's kind of interesting is if you can find a deal on a low pop card. Let's say you are able to get in on a player that he's kind of flying under the radar for you, And so because of that, some of his more rare stuff is cheap compared to what the other, the players like the Lukas and the Treys, where the prices are through the roof. If you find, if there's a player that's somewhat under the radar, and you're able to pick up those rare cards of that player, and then they have a few good games even. It doesn't even necessarily mean that they need to become a superstar. They could have a few 30-point games and you see a massive upswing. An example I would use for this is Tim Hardaway Jr. This is one where he plays for the Mavs. He's a role player. He's not a superstar, but he's a good player. And I bought a Select Silver Prism PSA 10, and I also got a green prism of his. But the Select Silver Prism, I got a PSA 10. I think I got it for $14. And this was right when the season started, because my team was the Mavs. I was thinking with Porzingis kind of coming off injury, Luka, I thought that they were going to be a little bit better than projected. I didn't think that Luka was going to do what he was going to do, but I thought they would be a little bit better. But anyway, Tim Hardaway Jr., I ended up turning that card. It wasn't a huge profit, but I sold it for $69. But it's an example of I bought the card, graded card for $14, $15, turned around and sold it for 4 times as much just 3 months later. So that's an example where you don't necessarily have to buy that $200 card and get the $400 sale. That's a great deal. Everyone wants to do that, of course. But if you don't have thousands of dollars to drop on sports cards, you can make things happen with a lower, with some of these lower end cards if you hit the players right. Something else to remember with basketball, which is great, is it's a global audience. So international audience, which means an international buying set. So as long as you feel comfortable shipping internationally, then you have the opportunity to sell, yes, through eBay, but also through Facebook groups, through Mercury is another selling app. I'm not sure if they do international sales, but anyway, there's other places to sell outside of eBay online. But I guess my next point is keep in mind that you've got international buyers out there. It's a global sport and it's very popular globally. So that's also going to open doors for you as long as you're comfortable shipping internationally. Documentaries and TV spots announcements. The easy one I've seen people talking about is Michael Jordan's Bulls. They have a documentary that was supposed to come out later. Now it's actually being released in April, but there's all sorts of hype around that documentary. And, that's going to mean more than likely a bump in Bulls prices, most notably Michael Jordan, which already has high prices to begin with, but I would expect some sort of a bump. So if I was looking to sell Michael Jordan cards, as soon as that documentary comes out or just kind of leading up to it, I would get ready to field those offers on eBay because it's gonna create a spike in my opinion. Same with Scottie Pippen rookies, and I don't know, maybe even Dennis Rodman or some of those other role players that people collect. That could be a selling opportunity. Hall of Fame announcements are no different to where, if someone has announced they're going into the Hall of Fame, they're going to get a spike in price a lot of times leading up to that. And then it's typically the hype leading up to it from what I've seen. Sometimes they'll also get a bump, kind of during the ceremony and afterwards, but I don't have enough data on that to convincingly say that's the case. So but those are the types of, if that player is in the media and there's some hype around that player due to one of those announcements, or TV spots, that can be a buying opportunity or a selling opportunity depending on what side you're on. Lastly, I want to go back to something I was talking about earlier. If you have limited capital, you don't have to go with expensive graded cards. You can spend a ton of money. It's easy to spend a lot of money, and a lot of what we do is we kind of, especially beginners, you go out there and there's so much inventory out there and you kind of spend and spend and spend, and then you're like, oh shoot, maybe I shouldn't have spent there, or I should have kind of held back, been a little bit more patient, but the one thing I was going to get at is, you can buy raw cards of superstars and flip those cards. Now, there's not going to be amazing deals on raw Luka cards, for example, but if it's a player that, again, we're buying in the offseason, ideally going into the season coming up, if it's a player that's under the radar to you, or it's a player that had a great rookie season. Look at Luka last year, had a great rookie season. His card prices were high, we thought, and then he broke out and his prices tripled, quadrupled, and went crazy. Same with Trae Young. So if it's a player that's you feel good about, that's proven. I mean, if you look at like a John Morant this year, Zion, if you see a dip in those prices, those are guys that they can play at this level. So can you turn around and make something, out of raw cards? You can. You just have to pay attention, look at the sales, and look and just try to get them, bid low, make offers, try to get bulk deals, and that is a good way to turn $5 cards into $15, $20 flips, and then you can build your capital into larger things. I'm actually looking at doing that more myself, to where I've been buying a lot of graded cards, but I've seen a lot of opportunities I've missed out on where I could have gotten raw cards and tripled my money without necessarily, you're doing more volume, of course. You have to do more volume to make, more volume than you would if you're flipping a $200 card to a $400 card, but it's still profit, So start there. If you have any questions here, please feel free to comment. I'd love to answer any questions. If you have any players that you're looking at that you want to run by me, I'd be happy to give any sort of feedback that I can. I'm not a clairvoyant, so I don't know who's going to win the championship or win the Super Bowl or any of that, but happy to answer any questions, and also happy to get feedback from you all and learn some things from you all too. So please subscribe. We're doing daily videos. So there will be another one tomorrow, but I just wanted to get this, basketball flipping 101 video out there for some of the newer folks that have been asking me over the last few weeks. So thank you again for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. Thanks.